calculations that we wanted to go over again. So just a reminder, you guys had, how many of you guys are using the triangles, by the way, to help with your calculation? Okay, good. Okay, it's a useful tool, so I recommend using it, right? So you had your triangle here and here. These were the two equations that we had. If you were choosing not to use those in your notes, your equations were on the back of your periodic table. Even the one for the last one today. It was this bottom one, which does 2 steps in 1 step. Okay? Now, when you went to solve for this, I'm going to get a scrap piece of paper, and that way I'm not writing all over that one for this one. Okay. So, number 1 was asking for violet light has the wavelength of 4.10 times 10 to the negative 12. So, you had to solve for frequency, right? And so, I mean, you could have looked just above, and there was the equation that you were supposed to use, because that was the part of the questions that this was on, which was your wavelength, or not your wavelength, your speed of light formula, right? So using the speed of light formula, the C equals F times lambda, we had to solve for F. So if you were using your triangle, you had C up here, lambda, frequency. We would cover up frequency because that's what it was asking us to solve for. We were left with C divided by lambda. So frequency was equal to 3E8. That was our speed of light, constant, divided by the wavelength that was given to you, which is 4.10 E negative 12. Okay? So we went over how to use the calculators that are here in class, but I did want to make sure that I showed you guys a couple times how to be using the Google calculator as well. Okay, so and if you have your phone one, that's cool. Hopefully you've gotten used to what you want to do. But when you go to type it in on Google, you would go 3. You have to hit the exponent. So a lot of people are making the mistake of hitting the little e. Don't hit the little e. It's EXP. That's how they do it. So 3E8, and then we would say divided by, and then we have our 4.10. We would hit the EXP again for a negative 12, okay? Google is a little friendlier. You don't have a different negative button. You just use that minus button, and it's fine. Okay, so you would have that typed in. We would push enter, and there's our answer, 7.317. So I would say 7.32 times 10 to the 19th power is what I would say, all right? So 7.32 times 10 to the 19th power. And what are the units that we put for frequency? What, hertz, yeah, HC. Good. Okay. All right, so that was the first one. Then number 3 said, what is the wavelength? So now we're going to be solving for wavelength. So we're going to cover up that when we have frequency given to us. So we have speed of light divided by frequency this time. So if you notice, speed of light is always on top, right? Okay, so you would now have your lambda is going to be equal to 3E8. We would divide it by, so then we have this big number right here. So what I kind of forced first period to do was put this into scientific, just because we got to. We got to know how to do that. How do you put that number into scientific? Walk me through the steps. And if you missed it that day and you didn't understand it that first day, you should be paying attention. Okay? So somebody who did. What did we have to do to change that to be scientific?
You had to move the decimal left or right in order to get the first number, which has to be less than 10.
It has to be less than 10. Good. So
replace whatever number in the decimal on the decimal.
good. Okay. She said it beautifully. So we're going to move that decimal. We want to move it until we get a number less than 10, right? So we would move that decimal from back here all the way over here. And so this would be 6.4. You can even put that 0 there, but we won't. It's fine. 6.4. And then we got to figure out how far we moved it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would say times 10 to the 5. And then we got to decide, is it negative or positive? So is this a big number or a small number?
Do you have to do that?
Hold on. What?
Do you have to change the scientific?
No, I'm doing this just because we need the practice.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it is a big number, so we would leave this positive. If it was a small number, we would change it to be a negative exponent to move it the other way, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use my scientific version. So I have 6.4 E5 as my bottom number. When I type that in, you should be getting 4.68 times 10 to the second power meters, or 468 point something, right? That's all that exponent means. So keep practicing your scientific notation and understanding what it means. That's kind of why I wanted to do it that way. Okay? All right. The next one that you guys had to do had to deal with the other equation, which is your one that has Planck's constant in it, right? So we wanted to determine we wanted to calculate the energy of a photon of radiation with a frequency of 8.5 times 10 to the 14 hertz. So we wanted to calculate energy. So we know from our notes that the energy formula, you would put E on top, we have H and F right here, right? So solving for energy means that we are just doing the formula as is. So Planck's constant times frequency. So knowing that, we would go ahead and say energy is equal to I'm starting with the number, E14 times, and then we would do Planck's constant, which is inside of your periodic table, or it's also up here, okay? So you guys used 6.63 E negative 34, right? So we're just going to multiply those two. So I'll go ahead and go to Google Calculator for that. 8.5, we hit EXP for the exponent thing, 14. Then we're going to say times. We're going to have 6.63. We're going to hit EXP again, negative 34. We're going to push enter. We get 5.635, so 5.64 times 10 to the negative 19 is our answer. So 5.64 times 10 to the negative 19. And what are the units that we put for energy? Joules. Okay. That last part of this warm-up, the last question, was saying what is the energy of something that has a wavelength of something else? So this one is the one where you're trying to solve for energy, but you're given a wavelength. So remember, the bridge between the two formulas that we learned was frequency. So you should have done it either in 2 steps, or if you were using your periodic table, there's a way to combine those 2 equations, okay? This combination equation was right here. So energy was Planck's constant times your speed of light, all divided by wavelength. So this would be one where you would want to use parentheses on the calculator, just to be clear, okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and use that one. So E equals Planck's constant times the speed of light, all divided by your wavelength. Okay, that's the combination equation. You could have solved for frequency and then plugged into the other one. Okay, all right, so when we go to type this one in, we have 6.63 E negative 34 times our speed of light, 3E8, all divided by our wavelength that was given to us, which was 4.06 E negative 11. So no matter what calculator you're using, you have parentheses available. So you have parentheses here. We would just do that. We'd say 6.63 E negative 34. I would multiply that by our 3E8. Close those parentheses. That takes care of the top. So notice you don't have to use any more parentheses than just what you're trying to knock out first, which is you want to keep the top stuff together and then divide it by that bottom number. Then we would put divide 4.06, push EXP again, negative 11, push enter. So this was the answer you should have gotten. So 4.899, so I'm going to round that up to 4.90 times 10 to the negative 15. 4.90, negative 15. And since this is energy, our units are again going to be joules. Okay? Wavelength and energy, are those guys directly related or inversely related? Wavelength and energy. Are they direct or are they inverse? Inverse, yep, indirect. Good, okay. Just want to make sure you guys remembered that. Okay, cool. All right, so that was the warm-up. So we kind of went over some of that assignment on Friday that you guys had on the computer. the one with the boarding house. So make sure, if you still haven't completed that, make sure you do take the second to complete that, okay? But we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit today.